Traditional publishing. Is it right for me? Is indie publishing right for me? What's the best? What are the pros? What are the cons? Now, this video isn't going to really be kind of the answers to that question. It's going to be more of my story and where I came from and why I chose the route that I chose and kind of how I got there. But I'm hoping that from my story, you'll be able to take kind of the things that I've learned and the things that I've done and be able to take that into your path and progress and make an informed decision from there. And if you like this conversation, if you like this topic, if you like these types of videos, first of all, please give this video a like and then subscribe. And I'm going to keep putting out more stuff on the writing industry as much as I can and kind of what I know. But share this video around as well to your other writer friends who may enjoy this type of topic. I wanted this video to be a conversation because the way that the industry works, there's a lot of detriment to it when you go the traditional route, but there's also a lot of positive things if you go the traditional route. And I suppose I should say a disclaimer here that I have not been traditionally published. I tried for a little while, and honestly, I did not kind of give it the patience that I should have, because when I'm trying to do something and I keep trying, or I try a little bit and it doesn't work out, then I tend to just kind of abandon it, which is not great. It's not a great quality of mine. I'm not saying that, but I'll get more into that later. But the thing is like, I want to make sure that if you're looking at a publishing route, whether it's traditional or indie, that you kind of have a good idea of what to expect, because there's a lot of writers out there. There's a lot of authors out there who either haven't gotten published yet, or maybe they have, but they've only tried one route. And so we're at a time where this is, publishing a book is more accessible than ever. And there's some positives to doing it yourself. But I just want to explain why I kissed traditional publishing goodbye per the title. What I don't want is, if you are trying to go that route, I don't want you to become discouraged and think that I'm just bashing on the industry. And I'll give some disclaimers. Actually, I'm going to go into that right now. So first, I want to give you a little bit of my backstory. So around the 2010s, I was looking for a career choice that, I had just gone through game design college. I went to Full Sail, and I could do a whole nother video on that. It turned out to be a bad decision for me, at least. I know it doesn't everybody, but it was for me. And because I live in the Midwest, and getting a job in the game design industry required, at the time, moving to either coast. At the time, we didn't have all the opportunities for work from home or remote positions, especially at an entry level. So that was really difficult. And so at that point, like, I can kind of, when I realized that, hey, I don't have enough money to move to a whole nother coast just to get to, a game studio, I was like, well, what can I do that I've always loved and that I could potentially make a career out of? And so I reached the decision to become a novelist, an author, a book author. And because that was something that I could learn to do myself without extra schooling, that was something I could practice, that was something I could continue to hone. And so that's what I did. And for a while, I believe I started out trying to go the traditional route. I didn't try very hard. I don't think I sent out more than about 20 queries for each book. And, you hear people that have been traditionally published, and a lot of these people who are traditionally published have gone through hundreds of queries before they got that one yes that was going to give them the opportunity to get traditionally published. And so I did not have the patience for that. That, to me, was just a nightmare, trying to invest months, if not years, querying public or agents with the hope of getting traditionally published. So I tried that for a little bit, and then before I went full indie, I tried indie, and that was, I sold, I think the most I sold for my first book that I did indie was 40 copies, which actually wasn't awful, but then I kind of kept running into problems, and I didn't meet the success that I wanted, so I, in my opinion, foolishly went back to trying traditionally published. I re-edited my work. I kind of combed over it, and I changed a lot of things to kind of improve it and make it into something that was marketable, and hopefully that it was something that agents wanted. But as I did that, I ran into the same problem that I did before, and that was that I was getting nowhere. I was putting out queries, and I was trying, at one point I went to a writers conference, and so at writers conferences, sometimes they have these pitch meetings where there are actually industry professionals that you can spend a little bit of time with, like 2 minutes or 5 minutes, I forget what it was, and you can pitch your story to them and see if they want to pick it up. I had a meeting with an editor, an in-house publishing editor from, let's see if I can remember. I believe it was Tor. And I pitched my book, and he wanted it. He wanted to look at the full manuscript, which was great, and I was so excited. And as I understand, a lot of authors who do that, even at these kind of pitch meetings, they don't get it. Like a full request is fairly rare, and so I was really encouraged by that. And so, I sent it off to the editor, and it was. Several weeks later, I think it was actually a few months, might have been like 3 or 4 months, and came back with a no. After that, I felt like I was going to go nowhere. And so, spent a little bit more time kind of meandering, trying to decide what to do. And finally, I believe it was 2022, last year, I made the decision that I'm just going to go full indie author, and I'm going to do my best, and I'm going to put everything of myself into it and see where it takes me. So I did that, and from then on, I kissed traditional publishing goodbye. Like, I have made the decision that I don't think I will ever go back to traditional publishing unless some miracle happens and somebody sees my books out there and they're like, hey, I want to give this guy a chance in the traditional publishing world. I'm going to go pick him up. Like, that would be the only way that I would go back to traditional publishing. That's kind of my backstory of where I'm coming from as an author. So real quick, before we go further into kind of my problems with traditional publishing, as well as some of the positives of indie publishing that I want to share, I understand agent and publishers' responsibilities. Okay, they do a hard job. They do a really difficult job. They do a job where they have to make, informed but snap decisions, and they have to be incredibly smart and clever and discerning when it comes to somebody else's work. And so as I go through all this, even though I hate the traditional publishing process, I do not blame necessarily the industry itself, and I do not blame agents or editors or publishing houses, because they have a process, and this process has been proven and works for what it needs for the most part. And they've been doing this for decades. So this is basically a proven process, and I get that. And there are definitely some things that could be improved, but I just want to make sure that whoever watches this video understands that I am not knocking those people or even necessarily publishing houses. Okay, so my first big problem with traditional publishing is the extremely low odds of getting picked from a query, getting an agent from a query. Now, if you know anything about the publishing process, you know that in the first step, generally, not always, is to query agents for your manuscript. So you have to have a completed manuscript, and then you have to go seek out agencies who take on your specific genre and your specific age group, and you have to query them. You have to send them your hook, you have to send them a synopsis, you have to send them a couple other things. And so you do that to tens, if not a couple hundred agencies. And sometimes you're even doing it in other countries. You're querying other agencies in different countries. When you do that, these agencies get like hundreds, maybe if not thousands, I'm not entirely sure, it depends on the agency, of queries each and every week. And so these agents have to filter through all of these queries. So because they have to make these snap judgments, there are a lot of times where you're just going to get looked over if your query doesn't catch their eye. And so they've got all these people to go through, all of these submissions, and then on top of that, they have to worry about their own clients that they've already picked up, because most of the time these agents, they already have clients that they're working with, that they're trying to get their clients published. They're submitting proposals to publishing houses to try to get them actually published through them, and then get their book in stores. So right off the bat, your chances of getting picked up or even getting a full manuscript, because you put part of your book into your query and you tell the agent a little bit about it, and then from there, if they pick you, if they choose what you've submitted, they're going to ask for a full manuscript. And then after the full manuscript, it's from there whether or not they're going to take you on as a client. When you're talking about hundreds of entries or submissions per week or per month, like your chances are just going to be so low that you're looking at submitting upwards of 100 queries before you possibly get that yes. And even then, that yes isn't guaranteed. All right. So the second kind of biggest problem that I have with traditional publishing is that when you submit to an agent, that agent has to have a subjective connection to your work. So, you could have the most amazing mystery on your hands. You could have it well written, perfectly written. It could, if you put it out in retailers, it could fly off the shelves. Okay. But none of that matters if the agent you queried doesn't like your work. So whether or not you have an excellent book on your hands, it becomes it doesn't matter. It does not matter. Because if the agent doesn't have that particular connection to your work, if they don't have that particular taste for your type of work, they're not going to give you a yes. And to me, like that is I mean, okay, again, let me go back for a second. I understand, like, you have to have an agent who loves your work, who feels that connection, who wants to champion it. You don't want an agent to go like, yeah, that's a pretty good book. It's well written. The story's all right. Yeah, I'll go ahead and take you as an agent. No, you want them to be like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. This is amazing. I love this. This is such a great book. You have to have the agent have that connection, because it's through that enthusiasm and through that excitement that, one, they're going to pick up a publisher. And two, when you have that level of excitement, they are championing that. They're going to do what they can to be excited about your book for you and spread that excitement. That is how books sell. Books don't sell. You have to have somebody that is excited about your book. Especially readers. If nobody's excited about your book will not sell, traditional publishing or not. So I understand why that's important. But at the same time, to me, I could potentially never find that yes. I could have a well-written book. I could have an exciting book. I could have a really great and interesting and intriguing story, but none of it would matter if I could never find that one agent who would say yes. And the potential to never gain that is there. So that is my second thing. And I understand, like, a lot of people would probably watch this video and say, well, your book probably just isn't good enough. Well, maybe that's possible, but it's also possible that it is a great book, and I would never be able to find that one person to let me in, to let my foot in the door. And then all of this comes down to such a huge time commitment that I just didn't have the patience for it. You know, when you're querying agents and you're looking for that one person to say yes, and then you're looking for and you submit your full manuscript if they do give you a yes, and then they have to read the full manuscript, and then they have to get back to you, and then they have to make the decision to give you a full yes, like, I'm going to take you on as a client. And then when you get to the publishing side of seeking out a publisher who will take your book and actually publish it, that whole process is basically the same thing over again. I didn't get that far, so I don't know the full process, but I think I think like authors have to write a proposal. If the agent gets a publishing house interested, and so I think that's called being on submission. Again, I don't know for sure, so I can't quote that with certainty. But that whole process as well. Okay, so let me go back. The agent seeking an agent can take up to a year, if not more, and then getting a publisher can take another year. So you are looking at almost guaranteed minimum of 2 years to go from querying an agent to getting your book in shelves. Especially now, like, to me, that time commitment is just not worth it, because that is so much. That takes so long, when all of that stuff can be done on my end as an indie publisher in less time. There's less red tape. The attention is only on me as an indie publisher, because I don't have to rely on agents. Busy agents who have other things going on. I don't have to rely on publishers who have, their people have other things going on and other clients to attend to and other books to sell and market. Because of that time commitment, I couldn't do it. I didn't have the patience, and I still don't have the patience, which is why I am not going traditional publishing anymore. So I know this sounds like I'm coming down really hard on the industry, but again, I'm not. I understand these processes they're required. Like, they have to do it this way in order to get the results that they're looking for. And, but the thing is, like, even going traditional publishing, like, a lot of traditional published books don't sell well. They don't get more than maybe a couple of hundred copies sold in a lifetime, which is, to me, that's just like, well, why in the world would I even bother going that way if I can just do it myself? And I'll get into a little bit more of that when I when I get to the positive. I understand why these processes are in place, and I understand their importance. And I want to say that, like, if you want to go traditional publishing route, I 100% support you. If you have the patience for it, if you have the commitment for it, that's great. Don't let anyone, especially some random YouTuber / indie author, tell you that you can't or you shouldn't go the traditional route. Okay, this is just me. This is why I kiss traditional publishing goodbye. So again, there's plenty of authors who have made it. There's plenty of authors who have found success in going the traditional route. So if you want to go that route, don't give up. At least on my account. Okay, so keep going. It is possible. It's entirely possible. So those are the huge negatives of the traditional publishing route that turned me away, that gave me reason not to pursue it. So, but next, I want to look at some of the positives of indie publishing, because there are some good things that that going indie can provide you. Like, there's some good things about it that can really give you the opportunities that you're looking for. So as I was kind of mentioning earlier, one of those things is having the control. So as an indie author, I have control over everything that I do. I have control over how my cover looks like. I have control over how the font looks like. I have control over margin spacing. I have control over marketing. I have control over where my books are sold. I have control over every little aspect of my publishing journey, except where it applies to like selling my books on Amazon. But all of that is up to me, because when you're working with agents or you're working with publishing houses, you don't always get to decide that kind of stuff. You don't always get to have the final say. A lot of people will tell you do, but you kind of do, you kind of don't, because you have to work with the publishing houses and the agents, and you have to make sure that your finished product looks as good as it can. And because publishing houses are fronting those costs, they have a little bit more final say than you might if you are an indie author. And so when it comes down to me, like, yeah, that's kind of a heavy burden. That's kind of a lot of responsibility. And, my success or failure is up to me as well. But, at least I have control. I get to make those decisions and have that final say, for better or for worse. And then the other thing is just, and you might laugh at this because it's kind of ridiculous, but at the same time, like, that the opportunity is theirs, and that's potential for massive success. And look, like, indie authors, they typically don't make a lot of money. There are some out there who have made all the right moves, who have made all the right calls, who have put together incredible books and found a really committed following. But generally, it's even harder because you don't have the power of a publishing house and the backing and the marketing of a publishing house that can propel your book forward and get you into retail stores. And something like that is not necessarily available to you as an indie author. But as an indie author, all of the money that you bring in, so if you do find success, all of that money, except for where, maybe storefronts, digital storefronts, like I think there's one called Ingram Spark, and then like obviously Amazon, they'll take a cut of your royalties, right? Because you're on their storefront. But all of that is not taken by agents. Agents, I think, typically take like 15% or something like that. And then obviously the publisher takes a cut of that as well. And so you're giving, you're not giving away, but you're paying these professionals to make your book happen. If you can make it happen yourself as an indie author, you are getting all of those profits rather than splitting them between other entities. And then when you talk about rights management, it's probably not the same for every scenario, but when you're working with a publisher, I believe, your rights, the rights to your property may not always stay with you. And, when you're an indie author, you don't have to worry about that. All of your rights, all of your IPs belong to you without question. And it's up to you, whatever opportunities come your way, it's up to you what to do with that. So even as an indie author, another big thing that really drew me into this is that the potential or the potential for success or even failure is solely in my hands. And that to me is a huge bonus. Yes, like, you don't have a lot of that backing that I was talking about earlier. You don't have marketing. You don't have industry pull. You don't have access to retail stores for the most part, but your success and failure is in several different hands. It's in agents' hands. It's in publishers' hands. It's in editors' hands. It's in Illustrator hands. But when it comes to indie publishing, all of that potential is in your hands as the author. And when you go the traditional route, even that base opportunity to get your foot in the door is not necessarily going to be provided for you. If you go indie, you absolutely have that potential. You absolutely have that ability to put your foot in the door and at least try. Whereas you might be kept completely out because you can't find that right agent to just get in the door. Again, I don't want to discourage people if they want to go this route, because it is viable. It is possible. It's still hard, and indie publishing is hard as well. There's a lot of things, all that potential, all that potential for success and failure is completely in your hands, and that can be a huge detriment. I've made some mistakes. I've made some bad decisions as an indie author in how I've presented my books and some of the design choices that I've made. Both options are viable and possible, but they both come with difficulties and hardships in how you try to go about getting your books to a readership, to an audience. And so if you go traditional, don't feel bad. Don't feel discouraged, because it is entirely possible for you to become a hit. It's entirely possible for you to get your work, your amazing work that you've spent all this time and energy and effort in producing, onto shelves for people to read. So don't give up. But hopefully if I've explained myself well enough, then you see the potential for indie publishing. So if you're tired of traditional publishing, you have the option to go indie publishing, and it can be daunting at first, but once you get in a rhythm and you learn kind of a lot of things, it's not as bad as it might seem. Before you give up completely on being an author, give indie publishing a try. It might surprise you. What do you think? Which route have you tried? Have you tried both routes? Have you just gone traditional? Have you found success in traditional? Have you found success in indie publishing? Let me know in the comments. Let's have a conversation. I'd love to know. I'd love to know your experiences and your perspectives. So that's all I've got. I hope to hear from you in the comments and see what you guys have to say.